Hi, everybody, and welcome to Eye Openers. As you guys know, this is the show where we are looking to create insights, moments of breakthrough, anything really to change the way that you see your business and leadership really from here on out. We do that with bringing awesome guests on, like my friend Matt here, which you guys are going to learn more about, but also through eye-opening beverages. So, what is your drink of choice this morning, Matt?
Well, I ran out of espresso, so I was gonna go make a cappuccino, and now I'm having one of those Late Columbia cold brews, which I'm
Oh,
sure I'm
nice.
botching the name.
Nice. A cold brew you make at your house.
No, no, no. These are like the pre-done cans
Okay.
from
Okay.
our Costco trip.
Okay. You fooled me with that mug you had going there.
I try and show up and look professional for you with the real mug.
Well, that's half the battle, right? I'm sure we're going to learn how you do that in other areas of your business too. So just looking professional gets the job done sometimes. You guys know me pretty well. I'm not like an everyday Starbucks girl, but I was running around with my toddler this morning and this made sense. Plus, they sell cake pops. And if you're about to judge me for giving my kid a cake pop in the morning, this is not the podcast for you. But here we are. And I'm on a challenge right now to drink coffee black. Now, with cold brew, I feel like it's a little bit easier to do that, but are you like a add milk, add sugar kind of guy
You know
or
what? My wife added creamer this morning. We're creamer, but I have been on a black kick for the last like 3 months. We were at my parents' place, and they drink black coffee, and after about a week, I was just kind of used to it. If you put a little cinnamon in there with the grounds,
Ooh.
it makes a big difference if you're drinking black coffee.
Oh, I like that. So when you're grounding the beans, you put cinnamon in there.
Usually, I just have the sprinkle shaker, so once you put the grounds in there, just sprinkle it on
Okay.
top. Yeah, that is if you're using the old school drip coffee makers and not the K cups.
Yeah. That's what I'm using. So, you guys, this is why we have this segment on the show so that I can selfishly learn better ways to make my coffee in the morning. And I've already had an eye opener, an insight, fresh off the live button here. So, let's for real though give you a real intro because people are sometimes like, well, why we're listening to Brittany do her yeah thing on the coffee, but why are we listening to this guy, Matt? And I want you guys to know we're going to have a really fun episode today. This guy likes to have fun like us. But to learn about him and his journey, well, that starts several years back when you started early in the restaurant business, right? So you had taken over a failing Jimmy John's franchise. So if you guys aren't from out east or mid-Atlantic, that is, would you classify it as a fast food chain or casual dining restaurant? How do you say?
That's a great question. I don't have the answer on that one. Quick
Okay.
service, yeah, somewhere in that
Quick
category.
service. Okay.
Put us
Quick
in the
service
Chipotle,
franchise.
Panera
Yeah.
category.
Okay, Chipotle. That's a really great comparison. People know Chipotle. So, right out of college, you were doing this. And after you turned it around, you spent the next 7 years opening additional units before exiting the business in 2018. After learning to code over the pandemic, which I think is incredible that you taught yourself that, Matt became consumed by the disparity between today's technology and the tools currently available to restaurant operators. Possessed with the mission to close the gap, ClearCOGS was born. So, for you guys who don't know, he's got the shirt on. I love the branding representation. Tell us a bit more about ClearCOGS, what you guys do, and who you help.
Yeah, so coming from a background operating restaurants, one of the things that was kind of amazing to me as you start looking at today's technology is just how little of it is in the hands of the small business owner and the operator. And so, what we do at ClearCogs is we help them manage their food. We help them through predictive forecasting, specifically like prep schedules. So, when you go to your local bagel shop, they basically just, bake 200 everything bagels every day, or maybe a little bit more for Saturdays and a little bit less, but it's kind of a playing it by gut and feel. And a lot of money is lost in that process. And again, it's awful. It's horrible for the environment on top of that. And so
Food
what we
waste.
basically do
Yeah.
is tell them, hey, this is how many everything bagels you need. This is how many plain bagels you need. And go into these different concepts and figure out what is it that moves the needle for their business, And then we just provide as a daily service email reports or putting it through to their point of sale system or back of the house software just to give them those insights.
Okay, and so obviously it's tied into all of that so that you know what they're using on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's
And without giving away your secret sauce, your algorithms, can you tell us like what you're looking at or
Yeah, absolutely. It's that whole big data AI machine learning thing. So we tap their POS data, we bring it all in. Our team of data engineers and machine learning specialists go through and build out the custom model for them. And then where it really gets special is, we take the time to understand the customer, and what their needs are and what moves the needle for them. And then, can provide those 5 or 10 numbers that already are in line with your current daily activities to move the needle, because we find there's not that many solutions out there, and the ones that are aren't really applicable to most people.
okay. And so like are you able to show people how much money they're saving if they hadn't made those changes or I'm just curious, what are some of those numbers that are coming through now?
Yeah, statistically, we show that we can reduce, waste that's derived from, over prepping ingredients by up to 85%.
Wow.
Now, in practicality, you're dealing with restaurants, nothing's ever perfect, but, we target around 50% reduction in over prep waste.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
it's
And so not only are they saving on material costs, but also on labor for prepping.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing. And more importantly, being that assistant manager on the night shift, right? And not knowing how much bread they're supposed to have or, how much chicken's supposed to be prepped. There's a lot of stress that's involved in that. And just being able to provide that clarity for people goes a long way.
Right. Okay. So 50% reduction in costs, right?
Yeah.
Over time, but kind of actually immediately the second they start implementing your suggestions, right, and really measuring it, you can start to see changes. So that's incredible. You're saving the customer money right away, but I mean, my gosh, 50% over time, that's huge. But you just started to speak about something that I know you know a bit about, which is the stress of being that manager and trying to look at what you have as far as ingredients and whatnot in the restaurant and what you might need. And if you're basing that like on feel, it's much less than perfect, but it's also incredibly stressful to plan and to project. So tell me about, your time when you were in the Jimmy John's just after college, trying to figure this stuff out for yourself. Like, what were those stressful moments like? Because I don't think everybody on this call understands what that's like.
Yeah. So I grew up in Champaign, Illinois, which is where Jimmy John's is headquartered. It's a big part of the ecosystem out there. And, I got it in my head that that's something I wanted to do, and found this a store at the University of Maryland that was, run down, and the guy needed out of the lease, and they were willing to sign it over to a 22-year-old kid who didn't know what he was doing. And so, it was really rough in the early years. It was truly like, I think we had, it's 14 shifts a week. They were 12-hour shifts. I found myself pretty quickly running 10 of them, so 120 hours a week, sleeping in the back of the store between shifts, like, no employees. It was, the air conditioning didn't work. It was a rough time. And I give a lot of credit to, the franchise concept in Jimmy John's, because, they gave me the playbook and I followed the playbook and executed it. And we were able to, almost triple sales within 18 months. And,
Wow.
uh, yeah, so there was a lot of fear and uncertainty and, the world going wrong. And it was a rough time.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what I guess what kind of skill or trait or what did you pull on to get yourself through? I mean, those are incredible. I've never done 100-hour week. Like, I don't know what that's like. And I remember you telling me like you've had to feel the pain for years. That was like a direct quote. I remember it really stuck with me in order to learn some of this stuff. So what motivated you to show up every day and keep working on solving that problem?
Yeah, well, I think one of the big things I learned was the value of people, the value of the people that are around you, the value of the team you build.
Mm.
So, we used to say, or at least I used to tell myself, like I had to earn my sleep. So like if you weren't able to get a person and train them and empower them to get on that night shift and run the graveyard shift in the middle of the night, I had to do it. And so you learned pretty quickly that like you need to take care of your people, you need to set them up for success, and because otherwise, you can't do it alone. And I think that was an early lesson that I took, and one that's paid dividends down the road.
Mm, mm. Awesome. So as an owner, you really took on that level of kind of responsibility and owned that if I don't do this, like then I'm going to be stuck doing it forever. If I don't train these people, if I don't empower them to, be awesome on this shift, then it's all going to come back to me anyway. So I might as well do it right.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a false choice. I mean, it was that or declare bankruptcy. So I was going to make it work. It was just how long the learning curve was going to be for
Got
that
it.
to happen.
Got it. And so, you got out of there or got out of there, you sold your business, which is a big deal. And then then here comes the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
So tell us how we go from Jimmy John's to like learning code during the pandemic.
You know what? I've always been fascinated with numbers. I have always enjoyed them. I was the guy that built these, like for my business, right? I'd spend hours building these like elaborate predictive models for, how much my food cost should have been. There's a great company called Margin Edge out there that does this like real-time P&Ls. Like we used to do shift level P&Ls, and like I
Mhm.
loved building these things. And so, hey, it's the pandemic. I'm at home a lot more, and I'm like, this is something I kind of want to look into it. I took some online classes and just instantly fell in love. Like it was the way my mind worked, was the
Mm.
way that code was done. And so, I threw myself into it, and it didn't take too long before, when your formative years are all restaurants and like that's your upbringing. It didn't take me long to connect the dots of like, where was this stuff when I was around? Like, how come we didn't have it? And it was just one of those like, aha, we've got to do something about this.
Cool. Cool. And so was the idea clear to you right away? Like was that a problem you were faced with, for the years you were running the Jimmy John's, thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm wasting so much, like this could be done better? How did you come to the idea for ClearCOGS?
It was a iterative process. It didn't just like, yeah, this is what we're going to do. No, I give a ton of the credit to my co-founder Osa for guiding us down this path, because I would have gone and built every tool to solve all of their needs, and it wouldn't have been practical. It wouldn't have worked, and we wouldn't have been able to necessarily put together something that could compete with some of the bigger companies. But the story was, we worked with a great team out of Duke and did a partnership, brought on 18 grad students doing their masters in quantitative
Cool.
management, and they were fantastic, and they helped us. And I think I originally wanted to do dynamic pricing and like predictive pricing models. And after really going and talking to a lot of operators and looking through the data, two things became really clear. One, food waste was a far bigger issue than we ever had imagined. I always thought about waste the inefficiencies being in the labor area and how can we manage labor better. And that's absolutely the case. But, food cost is one of these weird areas where nobody has really put the time and energy into solving. And that was kind of one of those, this seems odd. There's a lot of money here. Why isn't anybody solving it? And we found out pretty quickly why. It's a difficult problem to solve. It's really granular level forecasts, and the restaurant data is really bad. And everybody's got a different concept. But we found that if you're willing to put in the time and energy to understand people, understand their pain points, and take that extra 2 weeks to just like, instead of giving you a one size fits all software solution, take 2 weeks and figure out what it is that they need to know. So we like to tell people we build crystal balls. Like, we're going to build you a crystal ball, and it's really, what do you want to point this at? And that's where we come in, and it makes a big difference.
Awesome. So there's some customization features to what you guys create, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, we do kind of a consultative style start. We come in, understand your problems. It's a 4 week setup period, and that's something that is we're a relatively early startup, so our goal is to get that down to more like a week by the end of the year, and we're on that trajectory. But yeah, no, it's come in, figure out their problems, and then as a result of that, we get to sell you a daily forecasts or hourly forecasts, and work with you in the future on whatever other needs you may have.
Beautiful. Oh, I love that setup too for future work and what
Yeah.
you guys can solve for them.
You know, it was,
But
it was, it was funny. It's like, you expect your accountant to stay up to date on all of the accounting standards. You expect your lawyer to know what all of the upcoming laws are and changes. But somehow when people sell you a software solution, you're like, oh yeah, I expect it just to be exactly the same for the next 20 years. We just don't have that view. It's like, we're a vendor, we're a partner, we're someone who wants to, change and make it better and grow with you, because in this world of machine learning, we're always tweaking and tuning models and adjusting data, and as you do that, like, yeah, you build something over time that is really hard to replicate.
right, right. Well, so we're starting to tell me about, being future focused, which brings me to my favorite question here. And the audience knows I love to start out with a banger of a question. So if we were to speak 3 years from now, and I call you up and you say, "Oh, Brittany, it's so great to hear from you, my old friend," what would you have accomplished that you'd love to tell me about?
Yeah,
Just
so
to tell you,
yeah, like what I'd really like to accomplish is I'd really like to make tools like this mainstream. Like, just letting operators and restaurant groups, become aware that solutions like this are out there, because that ultimately ends up being a tool for their franchisees. And it helps that assistant manager on the night shift, instead of guessing, be able to have, data driven, clarity on what they're supposed to do. That would be where I'd like to be. I'd like to see the industry shift more in that direction.
okay. And so you guys are moving in the direction of approaching the franchisor, right? To
Yes, we are. So we work with franchisors. We work with restaurant groups that are privately owned. We work with large franchisees. The one downside to our technology right now is we do take that consultative style approach, which is, time and effort, and to recoup the investment that we put in up front, we do need to have at least a high enough unit count to make it economically viable.
sure. But one of my favorite quotes by Reid Hoffman, the investor, is that if you want to do something that scales, first you have to do something that doesn't.
Yeah, no, we're in that mode right now, but uh, I again view us as a vendor, and I view these as long-term relationships. Then we're certainly doing some of that and getting closer to the scaling side of it.
Right. Yeah, but first you have to have that kick-ass product,
Yeah,
that gets the job done. And sometimes that means you need to, have your hands in there a bit more right now, figuring out exactly what people are looking for. And
exactly.
yeah, cool. So what are the skills that got you to where you are today, right? So where do you find like you're pulling on? What experience are you pulling on right now as you work in your business?
Yeah, again, I go back to the value of people, right? So it's all about, can you bring great people along with you, and can you find the smart people to tell you what you should be doing? Because I'm kind of a restaurant guy who plays around with code and kind of understands this stuff. I know there are far smarter people out there, and so we've worked really hard to bring those smart people on the team and surround ourselves with them. So that's probably one. And then the other one's this: like, at a young age, restaurants are chaotic, right? You're constantly making decisions. You've got angry customers, you've got people that don't show up. It's unlike, I mean, it's probably most similar to like healthcare, and being on the, in nursing staff,
Mhm.
where there's just lots of unexpected stuff. There's, team vibe around there.
Yeah.
And, you know, going into the startup, going into a field that nobody's ever really done. I mean, they've done it in other industries, but no one's done this with restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that chaos, being able to make those decisions, all feels very natural coming back to me.
Cool. Cool. So you found like you feel that alignment, like you're really doing what you're supposed to be doing right
I'm
now. You're
having
doing what you're
a
prepared
blast.
to do.
Yeah, I'm having a blast. This is just great. It's a lot of fun.
I love hearing that. That's awesome. And so you're starting to touch on my favorite topic, which is culture and leadership development. And I love hearing people say like it's all about your people, because the truth is you wouldn't have ClearCOGS. It wouldn't be a thing if it weren't for your whole team. And the sooner you recognize that and shift the dynamic, which I learned from another one of my guests, that they don't work for you, you work for them. And creating that mindset and modeling it, and how you show up and how you support your team and how you enable them to best fulfill their greatest potential at your organization, speaks so much about who you are as a person, as a leader, and what your business is about. And so you guys are a growing team right now. You've already spoke to the concept of hiring for your skill gap, which is so important, especially in the first 10 people in an organization. What else are you doing? How are you building that culture from the ground up, and keeping that top of mind, front of mind for yourself?
Well, I would say there are two things that we do. One is about, and it kind of goes back to the surrounding yourself with the right people. But just as important as surrounding yourself with the right people is not surrounding yourself with the wrong people. And we've had countless opportunities to bring on really smart people that would have been good for solving certain problems, but that were not in line with our culture, right? They were not team players. They were not people that would, help in that way. And so, almost choosing not to bring them on is almost the hardest thing that you do, and makes a big difference. And then the other one is kind of going back to servant leadership. It's I'm not going to ask somebody to go work till midnight on a project that I'm not willing to come help work till midnight on the project, right?
Mm,
It's you lead by doing.
what a really great point. I also exercise that in my business. I'm kind of giving advice or whatever, challenging people to do things differently. And I make a constant practice of doing that myself, because I want to know what it feels like to be in their shoes, to be asked to really to make a dramatic change in the way you do something or see something differently. And if I can't relate to that, then I have no business really, in this business of working with people. But
What do you struggle with in leadership? So what are the areas that you have like a natural tendency to do the wrong thing, or do you even have those?
I love this. I love being interviewed. So, what do I struggle with? For me, the balance that I'm constantly working on is doing what's pleasing for the team, yet what's also right for the business, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to ruffle feathers in order to do what's right for the business at the end of the day. But where is that balance when those things are at odds with each other? Like, and how do you strike that balance? And so, as a leader, I think a lot of people they want to be liked, they want to be well received, right? But sometimes you have to um, make a decision that isn't pleasing for team members in order to secure the fiduciary, plan of the business or whatever it may be.
Yeah, we've all been there, and the one that I always come back to is, you read every leadership book, they all have a different way of going about it, right?
Mhm.
And they all preach that it's the only way. And the older I've gotten, the more I've interacted with other people and seen what they've done, the more I think it's just about authenticity, right? Like, as long as you're consistent and you're yourself, people pick up on that, right? Like, even if it's the hard choice.
Mhm. Yeah, really great point. I'm writing that down because it is. at the end of the day, you're right. Everybody's got a different approach. And honestly, that's what prompted me to start this podcast, because you could read 5 different books. You've got 5 different
Yeah.
methodologies, 5 different stories, and they all kind of are like this, underdog hero story at the end of the day. Well, the truth is, business doesn't work like that. It isn't a linear story like that. And it doesn't always work out like that at the end of the day. So I wanted to create a place where we tell the full story about failings, about partnerships that didn't work out, about ideas that actually sucked, that made you lose a ton of money, because I want people to know, like, that is the real journey, and it's okay to be on that part of the journey. It feels uncomfortable, but if you keep moving, or if you stay true to that, like, authenticity or your guiding principles or something you've established for your business, just because it's different than that latest book doesn't mean it's wrong, and it doesn't mean you're going the wrong direction.
Yeah, no, I think that's dead on. And I'm going to totally botch the quote. I was talking to somebody the other day, and I think the quote was something to the effect of consciously stepping into the better version of yourself. And it was one of those, just like being cognizant of, like, all right, this is who I am, and like this is who I want to be, and like more me shaping my actions versus being responsive to them. And I botched the quote. It was better than that, but it was something to that effect.
Right. And that it's not this, crazy change that happens, like, oh, I wake up, I get this idea, I change everything, and it just goes, smashingly. It's that waking up every day, like you said, and just being consistent, and then checking in and making sure you're driving your business with authenticity and values that really align with you. And that's what puts a smile on your face when you come to work every day. The work isn't necessarily easier, but it's simpler when you have that kind of alignment and intentionality in your
Yeah, and you may not have a smile on your face every day, or weeks. Like, there's bad times, and they're just, you got to endure and get through them.
right. So speaking of how I like to tell the full picture here, what would you say is your biggest weakness right now?
Oh, listening. I'm horrible at listening. I mean, that's it's just bar none. Like, I tend to come up with what I think the right answer is, and I tend to be a bulldozer. Again, I give great credit to my co-founder Osa, because he's one of the few individuals that does a really good job of managing that. Same with my wife. I kind of found a business partner, coding technical founder, that happens to have the same characteristics as my wife. I clearly have a type of person that I interact really well with. But yeah, no, I struggle with listening, and I miss out on a lot because of that, right? I solve the wrong problems sometimes because of that. And yeah, I need to do a little better. How about you? Let's turn it on you.
Okay, it was getting a little uncomfortable there in the hot seat, was it? Um, so my weakness that I'm working on is just, I'm at another one of those classic inflection points of feeling like I have to do X, Y, and Z, and only I can do it in the business.
Yeah.
So I'm at the point of hiring an associate, but so much of my work comes in on referral. Oh, I love working with Brittany. Here's what she's created for us, blah, blah, blah. Well, when they call my company with my name on it, and I'm like, perfect, I'm going to set you up with this amazing associate who's going to, work with you guys and do this. A lot of people might not like that or whatever. The irony is I've helped so many people move through this stage themselves. And here I am right now. And that's what I'm working on, is abandoning that narrative, or working through that narrative to prove to myself it's not true, and creating systems for it, training people, and replicating myself.
Gosh, that's so funny. So I'm like the exact opposite. Like, literally, I always say, "Oh, I can do this. It's not that complicated." And then, like, 8 hours later, I'm like, there's probably somebody that could do this a lot better than me. I'm gonna go find that person, and I'm gonna get them to come help me, get them to join the team. So it's almost as like a way to get out of doing work. I end up, surrounding myself with people that can do the job. It's the unintentional byproduct is really strong team. So I guess there's some good that comes of it.
I love it. See, this is why we're supposed to talk, so you could coach me through that.
I don't think that it's a real cognitive decision that I'm making so much as a defense mechanism.
Right. Or you've seen it, you've gone through it enough times, you've seen it work for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have a team of like 8 to 10 people right now. And that's, you've already done that 8 times.
Yeah, I think it actually goes back to this idea of like reading leadership in a book, right? Like this isn't something that I read in a book. This was just how I was wired, and this tends to be the outcome, and it works for me. And so like I embrace that, and I get educated in a lot of different areas as a result of that.
Mm.
I think it's kind of figuring out what works for you and what's your style.
Okay. I love that. What would you say is the number one behavior that got you to where you're at right now? So the number one thing that you do that has been successful to this point, but might hold you back from what you're trying to build moving forward?
I come up with like 10 ideas a day. So literally like it's what's Matt's idea of the day. And, I would say that like 7 of them are horrible. 2 of them are okay. And one of them, every now and then ends up being a good idea. And, it adds, I mean, it instantly it makes everything more complex because there's all these roads that you can go down, and it's distracting, and it's not systemized, and it's great for coming up with new features and ways to help the customer, but it can easily go off the rails.
Okay. So, but it also sounds like the question says, like it got you to where you are today. It's how you came up with great ideas. It's how you've been iterative, right? And got you to the product you're at right now.
That's why we're not doing, price optimization or dynamic pricing or building a giant platform or, doing labor. It's, we went down all those roads, and it was just like each time it was like, how about this, until you found the right thing.
Yeah. And so how are you harnessing it? Like, how are you working with it, to make you more efficient or to make the business stronger?
Yeah, Brittany, this is where I could do so much better. Like I should be working on myself. And how can I, control that? Instead, I basically just surrounded myself with people that, kind of redirect me or guide me away from it. And I don't know what the right answer is or the best road to go down, but that's where I'm at right now. Just surrounding myself with the right people that can, keep me from heading in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And that goes for the personal life too. Like my plans of building my big outdoor pizza oven, by hand, my wife just slowly guiding me away from that. Like this other project, like you sure you want to pour concrete and rebar in the backyard?
Yourself. Yeah. Good point. I like her already. Gosh, guys, I think that there is a specialty for what our friend Matt is talking about. Does anybody know anyone who helps people with things like that?
Therapist?
Answer is me. Have you ever worked with a coach or anybody to kind of help?
No, we got one. And I actually didn't place a lot of value in it. And we ended up trying it out, and it's actually me and my co-founder. And I think that it's like a fantastic format because, whether it's a lot about communicating with each other, almost like a marriage counselor, right?
Yes.
But, you see so many companies that, founders move apart, the communication breaks down. It's like, that's where it all starts. That's where the tone is set. And it's been amazing. I'm sure he's not nearly as good as you, Brittany, but
no, don't say that. There's amazing people out there, but I love that you're talking about your experience of coaching in general, because I think so many people don't understand like how it could be helpful for them. And it's just like what you're saying. So many partnerships fall apart, especially with founding members. So imperative that you guys continue to communicate, find a way to, really say what you need to say, and then give honest feedback. Like, hey, Matt, that idea is kind of bananas and we're not going to do that. And here's why. But like making sure you feel heard or given the opportunity to share your ideas is also super important.
Totally. Absolutely. And really, in a lot of ways, having somebody that sits back and listens to your conversation, because we'll go off on a tangent and we'll argue about something and how we interact, and then like, backs up to like, hey guys, let's just talk about like, you know, this part of it or this part of it or how you communicate or what you're really saying. And yeah, it's been transformative. And I sure hope that, as time goes on, it's helpful right now, but I see it as a long-term thing that pays dividends down the road. Do
Right,
you ever work,
exactly.
do you
It's
ever
not
work
like the
with,
problems go away. The
do you ever
problems.
work with business partners as a duo, or do you only do like, one-on-one coaching?
Oh no, I have all different kinds of situations going on. I work with like a lot of family businesses, so a lot of founders who are moving out, adult children who are moving into leadership. So a team like that. I work with ELTs all the time, executive leadership teams. I mean, I love working with the CEOs. I've worked with boards because they have a huge important role that is often not. They're often not aligned, and that can be really hard on the CEO and the executive leadership team. And so working with them on how they communicate down is important. Yeah, I love it all. I love working with teams and building culture and I guess renovating culture,
Teaching
taking what
people like
works,
me how to listen.
teaching people like you how to listen, because the truth is someone in your position, that can cost the organization lots of time, lots of money, lots of great people and resources if you get it wrong. And when you're early on, that's a big deal, and that could mean the end of the organization. So
Especially if you're coming up with 10 ideas a day.
yeah. But so thanks for sharing your experience about coaching, because I love, it's important for people to hear, not just from me, but from you guys in the trenches.
For anybody that's out there listening, what are the things that you look for in coaches? What makes a good coach?
Oh, what a great question. So I also think that this is part of the problem too, is that there are accrediting bodies for coaching, but it's more like life coaching. And, especially in business, how do you find a good business coach? That's a really, really tough question. I have formal trainings outside of coaching schools that I think is important to look at. Someone's experience themselves, what's their own experience running a business. You don't have to necessarily have run a business for a long time to like be a great business coach, but I am a psychologist by training, so I do know a fair amount about listening and communication and being able to guide people along that. Um, and I also have a degree in management, which helps me speak the business language with my clients and help them understand how these theories work, and then really evidence-based approaches. It's not just like a random idea I come up with that I'm asking you to execute on. It has been tested. There are real, results and outcomes we can look for and measure. That kind of approach, I think, is really important for someone to look for. So there's some formal experience, there's some real life experience outside of classroom that I would look for. But one of the best ways too is to ask your friends who are entrepreneurs. I have a lot of clients who come from the EO world. Are you familiar with EO? Entrepreneurs Organization? Or they have chapters all over the world, actually, and the criteria is to do $1 million in revenue in order to get into it. But a lot, once you are in the business world, asking around to your friends who are also in business, who they've worked with, can be a great way to find names.
Well, I imagine that there's a great degree of like trust, right? And built from like empathizing, with the situation. So, if I'm going in and getting a business coach, is it important if I'm an entrepreneur to find someone that's got that background, or if I'm, a board of directors, someone that has that background, or does it really not matter as much as, personality fit or training?
Sure. So goodness of fit is the number one thing, because if you can't have this nice back and forth flow and like you said, like lean into it with trust and feel that there's good empathy and understanding there, it doesn't matter. If you feel like I'm bossy and just like telling you what to do and not hearing you, like that's not going to work. Doesn't matter how smart I am. But the truth is I don't have to have built a $10 million business in order to help you build a $10 million business. It's a different set of skills that are required to make a great coach versus to build that business. And just like you're finding that you bringing in people who bridge the gap between your skill set can be incredibly helpful and actually exponentially helpful for your organization. The exact same thing is true. If you can get somebody who you trust, who you can be completely open with, who can show you your blind spots, help you plan for it, help you prepare for it before things are on fire, I mean, that's invaluable. Or you could actually put a number on it and show yourself how valuable it is.
I put that in the invaluable category. If somebody can pull that out of me in an hour a week, I give them serious credit.
Right. And then the thing people often don't understand is I love to look at the entrepreneur as a whole person. So if there is stuff going on at home, or, if you're putting in a 100-hour week and your wife is pissed or things are falling apart in your personal life, like that needs to get managed too. And so I would encourage all entrepreneurs to work with somebody who is able to meet you where you're at in all areas of your life, because you are one person. You don't just turn off when you move from different rooms in your house or different buildings in your town, and so make sure you have somebody who can show up for you in those different ways.
That's incredible advice. It really is. It also sets a very high bar.
Yeah, I know. I just threw a lot out there. But you know what? Why shouldn't the bar be that high? Look at how hard you're working to create success for ClearCOGS, to provide for your employees, to grow your team, to provide these solutions for these restaurateurs. The bar should be that high. And when you find somebody who can show up in the exact same way and work, with that level of commitment, then you found the right person.
Hey, I get it. That's exactly how we feel for restaurants. It's like, why shouldn't we spend 2 weeks and actually give you something that makes a difference? Why shouldn't we? You guys are running this thing every day, and you have been for 10 years, and you're telling me it's going to take us an extra 40 hours to make something that really makes your life a difference? Like, it's almost our obligation at that point.
Completely. I love that approach. Cool. So Matt, tell me, how can people find you if they have questions for you or they want to learn about ClearCOGS? What's the best way?
You can get right on our website, top right corner, schedule a call. We love talking with restaurants. We love talking with people in the restaurant tech space. You're going to get me right on a call, and I would love nothing more than talk, and I will do my best to listen.
Hopefully his coach is going to help him with that. Cool. So I will make sure wherever you guys are watching this that you have a way to get in touch with Matt. We'll have your website posted. We'll have your LinkedIn. If you're probably watching this on LinkedIn Live, it'll be there. It'll be in the show notes of all the podcast platforms that you're going to see this on. I can't thank you enough. Thanks for being real. Thanks for being authentic and showing up as you promised, just as Matt. And letting the audience get a feel for that, get a taste for who you are and what ClearCOGS is about.
Brittany, it was an honor being on. I really appreciate it. Keep up the good work. I love the mentality on the coaching, and that's pays dividends for all of us entrepreneurs out there. So keep it up.
And thanks to you guys for listening. If it wasn't for you guys and sending me messages about the value you're getting from these, I don't know if I'd be able to keep it up. So thanks for watching, listening, however you're absorbing this content. And if you loved it, make sure to subscribe and share it with your friends. Okay, guys, until next time, keep getting out there and chasing your dreams. See you guys.